Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to my studio. This is Paint with Lovejoy. Thanks so much for joining me. If this is your first time here, please subscribe to the channel and check out the other videos. And if you're here for a second, third, or fourth time, thank you so much for coming back and getting creative. All right, guys, it's going to be another fun painting today. So grab your supplies, transfer your traceable to your surface, and as always, make sure you take your progress photos. Now on mine, I went over my traceable with a black Sharpie marker for those of you that are going to pause the video and draw what you see at home. If you're utilizing the traceable, you don't need to go over it with a black Sharpie marker. All right, so what we're going to do first is we're going to start with a light gray. And you saw that I pulled some white aside using that large flat brush, grabbed a tiny amount of black to make a light gray, and then grabbed a tiny amount of raw sienna. And if you were watching, just notice that I kind of dipped my corner of the brush into each of those colors and then mixed it in with the white. And as we place this on the background, it will go in a few specific areas. So I want you to just observe where I place it, the shape that I make, and then mimic that to the best of your ability on your canvas at home. Now, just a bit of a note, because I did go over my traceable lines with a black Sharpie marker. As I come up next to the dress, I am making sure that my background overlaps that line because I do want that to kind of disappear. So you will notice that I go a little inside that line. Now, as you're filling in the space, if you have to mix your color 2 or 3 times, don't stress about getting the exact same shade. If it's a little lighter or a little darker when you mix your color, that's okay. And here we go, I'm making it again. And going a bit darker on this one. And with this darker shade, we're going to put a few shadows on there. And again, just kind of observe the general place and the shape that I make with this. As you come up close to the other color, the lighter color, use light pressure with your brush and you can blend the two together and kind of soften that line a little bit. If you're still kind of getting comfortable with your blending and you kind of keep that sharp line, that's okay. That's just where you're at for today. But the more that you paint, the more practice you'll get and the more comfortable you'll get with your blending. All right, then again, if you need to go back, mix that color again to kind of fill in the rest of that side. Like I said earlier, if yours is a little lighter or darker than mine, no big deal. You can always kind of paint right on top of it. There we go, to kind of reapply some of that darker area. All right, so now we're going to go with a medium gray, going a little bit darker as we move into the background. And I did simplify this Degas painting. So if you want to pull up the original painting and follow that with a bit more detail, feel free to do that. So still using that large flat brush, filling in the dark gray, medium to dark gray for the background for this ballerina dancer. All right, and if you happen to be on a stretched canvas, I do recommend that you carry your colors of the background around the edges of the canvas, top, bottom, and sides. It just looks nice when you hang it on the wall, having that color wrap around the edge. And for that shadow on the foot, I did move down to a smaller brush. I can do a little bit more control, and these are just kind of choppy little brush strokes. All right, so a good place to pause the video and take your progress photo. We're now going to move into a light yellow with a touch of teal. You're more than welcome to go darker or lighter, different color, whatever you want. So that was white with yellow and then a tiny amount of teal added to it. And I'm sticking with that medium flat brush. If you need to move down to the small pointy brush, go right ahead and do that. Even if you need to switch back and forth, you can do that. So we're putting our lightest color on first, and then we'll just go a little bit darker as we fill in the space. Again, you are strengthening your power of observation as you observe where I place it and the shape that I make with each of these colors. So added a bit more teal to this mixture, going a little bit more of that kind of greenish hint. And again, just observe where I'm placing it. And if you need to make that color again, like I'm doing right now, just kind of have fun with the mixing. Each time you mix paint, your brain's taking in that information about how much pigment, how little pigment, what color looks like what when you mix it together. So in your beginning stages, every time you mix colors, your brain is taking in all that information, and it does get easier with the more that you paint. So making that mixture again, kind of staying about in the range, went just maybe a shade or two a little darker on this one. So feel free to adjust and adapt to what you need. All right, so now going a little bit darker with our next batch. Here we go, slapping more of that teal in there. There we go. And again, just kind of filling in the rest of her dress, her little tutu, and some of the background. And some of the colors in the background are giving hints that there's other dancers on stage, or other dancers in the scene that Degas was painting. And it's just kind of nice having some of the same colors floating in the background, and just, intensifying the color scheme of your whole composition. And the more that you paint, the more you'll start seeing some of those similarities in the colors that kind of show up in the background, as well as the subject matter of the painting. All right, if you do happen to be holding your breath, take a big inhale, laugh at yourself a little bit. You're doing a great job. You're transforming a blank canvas into something that you created, and you're doing really good. All right, so for this one, we're actually going to add blue to the mixture we were just using. So as you can see on the side, I added a little bit of blue and then adding it to the mixture that we were just using. So it takes this color into that blue phase. And if you want to go a little more intense blue than I have here, go right ahead and do that. And we're again just kind of filling up those spaces. It is okay to overlap some of the other colors and do a little bit of blending. You'll notice that kind of short, choppy little brush strokes are your friend. So as we move into this next spot, we're doing the same thing, just adding more raw sienna to the mixture we were just using. And you can see that I'm doing the perimeter mixing on the edge of the pile of the paint we were using initially. And again, the more that you paint, the more you'll start doing that with your own mixing plate and finding ways to incorporate your colors. All right, so going back to that initial color that was white and yellow with the touch of with the touch of teal, and then mixing the raw sienna in with it because I was running out of paint. So don't be upset if you have to make that color 2 or 3 times. Like I said earlier, it's just good practice. So this kind of greenish raw sienna color, kind of filling in a few of the areas where canvas is still showing through. I am referencing the original painting and kind of placing this greenish raw sienna color where I see it in the painting, and doing a little bit of blending, but you guys are doing great. All right, and then we'll get a little bit the rest of her dress, and then we'll start getting that skin tone on there. All right, so now grabbing that white, putting those highlights on there, and you will notice that I will go back and grab white every couple of brush strokes. Because all the paint is still wet, that white is going to dissolve kind of quickly into those colors, and you'll lose that pureness of the white. So be rather generous as you're applying this, and then just kind of play with your blending with this white. If you feel like finger painting to do some of the blending, go right ahead. That's a lot of fun, real tactile. Just grab some extra napkins to wipe your hands. All right, so grabbing some of that raw sienna and just placing it directly on top of the other colors, referencing the original painting and just kind of placing it in the areas that we need. So you guys have done a great job. So now we're going to move into a light raw sienna, and that is white with a tiny amount of raw sienna. And we're going to fill in the top part of her dress, place that color on there. I am going right over those traceable lines, filling all of it in, and then we'll put a little bit of shading on top of this. All right, so clean that brush. We're going to add a tiny, tiny amount of black to that light raw sienna mixture you were just using. So we kind of have a grayish raw sienna, a light grayish raw sienna color. And there I had to make it again because I didn't have enough paint. And we're just going to place that as the shadow. And you will notice that sometimes maybe you place it on there and it's not dark enough. So go ahead and add a little bit more black to your mixture if it's not giving you that dark shadow once you apply it to your canvas. And again, pause the video as you need to, observe where I placed each of those colors, and then mimic that to the best of your ability. All right, so a good spot to pause the video, take your progress photo, and we're going to move into a light pink. We are going into the skin tone, so if you want to change the skin tone, you're more than welcome to. So I took that white, added a tiny amount of raw sienna, again, keeping it really light, and then we're going to add a tiny, tiny, tiny amount of red to just kind of warm it up. So again, feel free to adjust if you want a different skin tone for your dancer. And we're going to fill in her whole face, her shoulders and chest, the arms, the little foot that's sticking out behind, and then the foot that she is dancing and balancing on. And just like the blouse or the top of her dress, we'll be adding some, like right here, some raw sienna for our shadow. And we'll do it kind of section by section. So we'll kind of keep building on this concept. So again, just observe where I'm placing each of these shadow elements, and then I'm going to wipe that brush off, and with little dots, light pressure, just kind of blend that raw sienna into the lighter mixture as the base. And we'll recreate this formula for each of the arms and the feet. Just going back to that. And then, yeah, a little bit of a grayish light raw sienna, just added a little touch of black to that mixture, just intensifying some of the shadows. Again, just observe what you see and mimic it to the best of your ability. Strengthening your power of observation is a huge skill in art, and that's what you're doing basically each time you follow a video. You're strengthening your power of observation. So here, really light, I'm using that direct white for a few of the highlights, and those basically are kind of on the opposite side of the shadows. So on her face, it's kind of on her forehead and the right-hand side of her face, and then the kind of the tops of the arms and her chest. And then going back to that original mixture, that white, tiny amount of raw sienna, touch of red to make that initial skin tone, the base, laying it on the arms and the feet, or the arms and the legs. And then we'll go back in with that raw sienna, add a shadow, and then that grayish raw sienna, and add another shadow. And as you do this, light pressure is your friend, especially as we are in some of these smaller, tighter, kind of controlled spaces. If you need to grab a smaller brush, go right ahead. If you get into super tiny areas, you can use a toothpick. A little harder to blend with it, but you can do some dots and little pointillism, and it helps just getting into some of those tight spaces. Another thing that I recommend to all my students is, as you are painting, every now and then prop your painting up, get out of your chair, and look at it from a distance of 5 to 10 feet away. This is the normal viewing distance for most things in life, and especially artwork. And learning to look at your creation while you're painting it from that distance and assess what works and does not work, and then go back and make the changes needed, will help your progress as a painter, as a creative person, just seeing it from a different perspective. And that's really what art is just looking at life from a new vantage point, a new perspective, a new appreciation. All right, looking good. And again, if you have to mix your color 2 and 3 times, it is just excellent, excellent practice. So I'm making that skin tone again, white with a tiny amount of raw sienna and then a tiny amount of red. Your brain is taking in so much information right now. A lot of things that you're learning in this painting, these skills will show up the next time that you paint, and then the next time after that. So painting's not about being perfect, but just improving on your skills and feeling a little bit more comfortable, or painting something new and different each time that you paint. So that's why I encourage that you find creative outlets on a regular basis. It does lead to more relaxed human beings, and this world can definitely use a little bit more of that. I do think people are way too stressed out than they need to be right now. So still filling in kind of those final details on the legs. Pause the video and just observe where each of these shadows was placed. And then going in with the white, generally goes on the opposite side of the shadow to give that highlight, that pop color, to give us this 3D illusion on a flat surface. All right, you guys, really proud of you. You're doing great. All right, so now we're going to move into a dark raw sienna, and that is going to be raw sienna with a little bit of black. And keep in mind, a tiny amount of black goes a long way. And this is going to be her hair color. Again, full permission if you want to switch out the hair color to something different, go right ahead and do that. All right, and to me it feels better once we finally have the entire canvas covered with paint. So right there, just grabbed a little bit of black, put in a top shadow on the left-hand side of her hair and kind of going down the face line. Again, just pause the video and just observe where you see it placed. All right, at an excellent spot to pause the video, take your progress photo. I do recommend letting this fully dry before you move into your outlines. And we are using the small pointy brush. You can add a touch of water to your paint if you have kind of thicker paint. That will give you a little more fluidity. If you already have kind of runny paint to begin with, don't add any water to it. And as you go to apply this, I want you to treat your brush like a pencil using just the last 2 millimeters of your brush, of the bristles, and create this kind of nice little simple line around the figure. And I'm not going to fully outline it like the Traceable, but just put this in a few kind of select areas. And this just helps kind of clean up and define the composition, deviating a little bit from what the original looks like. And then putting in some little accent lines for the dress. And there'll be some stuff in the background that we add to mimic what the original looks like. So again, full permission to deviate from the original or from the video and make the painting your own. As you are painting with this small pointy brush, especially if it's one of your first times using this, you may be holding your breath, so exhale. And if you find that your brush is shaky as you go to apply it, that does mean you're holding your breath. So if you exhale as you touch the brush to the canvas, that will help your process. And if you have varying widths of lines, just embrace that. That's where you're at for today. After today's painting, when you go to do line work again, you'll remember this and your muscles will remember it and you'll have a little bit more control and it'll feel a little bit easier. So like I said earlier, that's the best part about the painting process. Now, as you make these lines, you can do 2 things to kind of steady your hand. What I'm doing here is actually resting my forearm against the edge of the table, which is out of the video, so you can't see that. Sometimes in some of my videos, you'll see that I put my pinky out, rest that on a dry spot on the canvas, and use that as my pivot point. So whatever you need to do to kind of make this process easier, do that for yourself. And you are more than welcome if you need to turn the canvas sideways, upside down, put it on your lap, anything that you need to do to get to some of these sections. I keep it in the same orientation just because I'm filming the video. Painting is more about just what you need for your creative expression, and these videos are just a nice little template to follow, but to give you permission to go in your own direction. All right, so last thing that we're going to be adding is some white, some just kind of pure highlights on the top part of her dress and then a few other areas. So again, just pause the video, notice where I place it, trust your instincts if you're inclined to place the white highlight somewhere I do not. Same with if you want to throw in other colors. So I'm really proud of you guys for stepping out of your comfort zone, painting at home. Hopefully you're doing this on a regular basis. If not, please start to find a creative outlet on a monthly basis for yourself. It's just a beneficial thing to add to your life. So thanks again, guys. And until next time, cheers.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed the process of painting and I hope you are happy with how your paintings turned out. I'm really proud of you for getting creative. As you're uploading these to social media, please tag me at or hashtag paintwithlovejoy or email me your pictures paintwithlovejoy@gmail.com. I really enjoy seeing them. I try to post them on social media to encourage other beginner painters to try the process of painting. But please share this with your community as well. Anybody who is kind of scared to paint, share your experience with them and let them know kind of how much you benefited from it and how much you enjoyed the process. So kind of share the fun. With that being said, if you have any comments, questions, feedback, things that you want me to paint in the future, please leave a comment. I try to respond to everybody as quickly as I can. And any of the future suggestions for paintings, I add that to my production list and get to them as quickly as I can. So in the meantime, please keep getting creative. Let me know how you're doing. And until next time, cheers.